Welcome back to The Real Story with Jeannie Ives. On the phone with me is State Representative Chris Miller. Chris Miller just got elected into one of the brand new districts. Chris, I believe that's the 101st district now. Is that correct?
Yep, that's the 101st District. Jeannie, it's great to be on with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking a few minutes here just to talk about some of the issues in the state of Illinois. Now, it's kind of interesting. It is Thursday. You should be in Springfield for Veto Session, but they canceled today. So what did you do for the first 2 days of Veto Session?
Well, let me see. We could have a long pause of silence. You know, even in the calendar, it was totally blank. So I guess they just had us come down there so that we could waste the taxpayers' money and stimulate the alcohol economy there in Sangamon County in Springfield.
So are you? Listen though, Chris. Wait a minute. Those Democrats had grandiose plans about, taking some action to mitigate the problems with the Safety Act. Are you saying that there was no committee hearings on that? There was no discussion?
We checked in on Tuesday. Some of the people that really enjoy hearing the sound of their voice got up and rose to a few points of personal privilege, named it maybe a bridge or something, and we clocked out, and the same thing on Wednesday. Absolutely nothing was done.
And you guys were able to collect your per diem, though, and your travel expense.
Well, of course,
Of course, yeah. And I think per diem's up to, 130 a day or something like that. It's just, whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, and nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Right.
Well, why should
Absolutely.
anything happen?
Yeah.
The Democrats are in complete control. So let's go forward from there. What do you expect will happen when you go back for veto session November 29, 30, and December 1st? You're scheduled back for the second round of veto session. And again, for listeners, veto session is that time period in the fall after the governor's had a chance to look over all the bills. And if there were a bill that he vetoed that one of the particular caucuses wanted to override, in our case, that would only be the Democrats because they have super majority control, then you would come back for a veto session and look at that legislative action and whether or not you want to take anything on a governor's veto. It's called veto session for that reason. It's also veto session because it's also a time for them to actually consider other legislation that they did not get passed in regular session that they still want to get passed. Do you project in December, at the end of November when you guys come back for second week, that there will be any action taken on any of the significant issues facing the state of Illinois, most specifically the Safety Act? Do you think they're going to do anything?
Well, I think that it would be a real shock to all of us that really know how the things operate in Springfield that anything positive happens, because they have a real bad habit of making public policy that has a negative impact on people of Illinois. And so bottom line is I expect more of the same, a whole lot of partying and not much work.
Well, that's kind of depressing. And here you are, you're headed back. This will be your third term in office, correct?
That is correct.
Yes,
Yep.
Your third term going down to a place that is arguably very dysfunctional. And now, not only do they have a supermajority of Democrats, they have really a super majority in that they won another 5 seats. So you're going into a massive deficit. You are probably going to have, 40 Republicans is what it looks like to be, and the rest of the 118 are Democrats. 78.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, and and the thing that the people need to understand is that all this bad public policy that has happened pretty much lies squarely at the seat of the Democrats and a few squishy Republicans.
So you wrote this opinion piece, and it was posted to Illinois Review. The site's been completely redesigned. It does look good, I must say. And the title of it is "Illinois Can No Longer Afford to Ignore Business Community Warnings." And I do find it very interesting. The start of it is, and actually you're writing this as the chairman of the Illinois Freedom Caucus. This is a caucus. I think how many are there? I think maybe 5 of you conservative folks who are looking out for conservative principles down there in Springfield. So the start of it is in 2011, Doug Oberhelman, then CEO of Caterpillar, penned a letter to then Governor Pat Quinn, warning that the business policies in Illinois would eventually force companies like his to leave Illinois. That's right. He wrote that in 2011. I distinctly remember it. Okay. So he writes this letter. I distinctly remember, as a brand new freshman legislator, going to a very large Illinois Manufacturers Association dinner that they had in Springfield, in Chicago. He was the keynote speaker, again, Doug Oberhelman, and he was putting out staunch warnings again in 2013 about this same topic, that we have got to get control of our business practices. And again, also warning the Caterpillar will move. Well, it took a few years, but they announced this year in 2022 that they're moving their headquarters.
Yep.
So tell me more about your letter.
Well, one thing that the legislators don't understand, particularly on the left side of the aisle, is that bad policy leads to bad outcomes, and policy affects people, and policy affects families, and policy affects business. And one thing that COVID did for us, it made people realize that they could do their business anywhere. I know we had a similar situation here a few years ago in my district down at Lawrenceville, where Pioneer Oil and Don Jones their family had been down there for over 100 years, and he kept warning them, you need to quit messing with me. And finally, they provoked him long enough that he moved across the river to Vincennes and totally redid the downtown district. And it's interesting when you see the contrast, because when you go across the Red Skelton Bridge across the Wabash River, on the Illinois side you have trailer parks, bars, and gambling, and on the Indiana side you have a beautiful park and a wonderful downtown district that houses a bunch of small businesses that are thriving. But it's a contrast between how the two states are governed.
That is an interesting comparison. I also remember State Representative Mark Batnick, who I served with, and you did too. And Mark has now decided not to run. He did not run it again this year. But he was relating a story to me that he went to. He graduated from Lansing, Illinois, and in order to have their class reunion for high school, they went across the state border to Indiana because there was just not an appropriate place to hold the class reunion on the Illinois side. That's pretty sad. Yeah,
it is sad.
Well,
but that story is becoming far too common also.
So what do you expect? I mean, now do you think that they're going? I anticipate it's going to get worse. Amendment 1 apparently did pass. We got word of that just yesterday, that they had a sufficient number of votes to reach that 50% threshold plus one, and so that Amendment 1 will go in effect. Of course, that absolutely negates any prospect of Illinois becoming a right-to-work state, because you would have to now reverse this constitutional amendment that says we will never be right to work. And in addition, it gives all sorts of protections to the public sector government workers, which I think is only going to escalate taxes in this state, both property and other. And, one thing that businesses are very cognizant of is their taxes, and that includes property taxes. So I don't know. I don't see it getting better in this state for business.
Well, one thing I've noticed about my colleagues on the left side of the aisle is that they're seldom right, but never in doubt. And, it's really unfortunate that people don't know what they don't know. And I think that it's like that there's a disconnect between the way that they think and policy that negatively impacts business, like they don't have a clue. And one thing that I've not witnessed any political will, number one, to own the problems that lie squarely at their feet, and then number two, to do anything about it. But, in order for there to be there's a solution to every problem. And the good news is everything that's wrong with Illinois has been self-inflicted by bad public policy. And the Democrats, because their solution to everything is to tax more, borrow more, spend more regulation, and they have the doggone morals of a tomcat at the same time.
Well, you write in your op-ed here, bad leadership has created a hostile business environment, an environment the business community has warned us about for years. If we want to become a destination for jobs and opportunities, then we must heed the warnings of job creators and enact better policies. They don't listen to job creators. We know from the Safety Act they don't listen to prosecutors or state's attorneys or judges that have to actually put those policies in places. I love your other line in here where you say that the Democrats and various members of the media love to brand my downstate colleagues and I as some sort of extremists. But the truth is we ran for office because the current leadership in our state couldn't run a lemonade stand, let alone a state the size of Illinois. I think that's absolutely true. You have a lot of people that are practitioners of public policy who have never themselves been forced to deal with the public policy they impose on others. It is shameful, to say the least.
Well, it's absolutely true. And, our taxes too high is the bottom line. Our state energy policies and utilities are too high. We have too many business regulations and some of the highest workers' compensation in the nation. And all that leads to a hostile environment for businesses to thrive here in the state of Illinois. And doing the same thing that we've always done is going to produce the results that we've always received. And so it's time to put on your critical thinking caps and begin to dig our way out of this mess that we're in, and to admit that we have a problem, and to begin to work towards solutions to fix this mess.
Okay, well, before I let you go, one last thing I want to discuss is that the governor is touting a whole lot of information that I think is going to prove wrong in the future. For example, he's very excited about the uptick in income taxes collected, the uptick in sales tax collected. A lot of the sales tax collection has to do with the fact that we now do collect sales tax on internet purchases. But we've had the largest budget in the history of the state of Illinois, despite having out migration and losing a congressional seat because of that. So the state is in decline. The state is hollowing out, so to speak. They only see rosy predictions in the future. I think when it comes to budgeting, one of the first things that you guys are going to do when you get back into Springfield for the 103rd General Assembly that'll take place sometime mid-January, and one of the first things you do is you start to work on the budget and you come up with a revenue estimate. What's your prediction here, I guess? What is your prediction? Will the budget again be at record highs? And will they also assume record revenue increases?
Well, the first thing that we have to realize is that the Democrats lie with impunity, and you can't believe anything they say because they massage, manipulate, and just flat out lie to the consumers time after time after time, as I've watched them. And when you just look at what people can say whatever they want to say, but it's important to watch what they do and watch how they vote. And, inflation right now, inflation's out of control. We have a literal invasion on our southern border, and we have complete incompetence in leadership. And so, I wouldn't, if J.B. Pritzker told me the sun was shining, I'd make sure I looked outside to make sure he wasn't telling me a whopper.
Oh, I love the plain-spoken Chris Miller here. Always a pleasure to have on the show. Thanks for the preview of what you think is to come in the veto session in that first week of December, and then in the future. I do appreciate your conservative leadership down there. We need more people to be outspoken, and we need the media to pick up on your messaging, because we need a balance. Illinois is out of balance from that respect.
Absolutely.
So you guys are the counterweight, and we need to make sure your voices are heard. So, Chris, thank you for joining me on The Real Story with Jeannie Ives. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, Jeannie. Look forward to the next time.
You bet. Have a great
Okay.
Thanksgiving.